Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. My name is Catherine Reed, and I am the CEO of American Friends of Magen David Adom. We gather today at a moment of extraordinary challenge for Israel and for Jewish people worldwide. Israel is battling a multi-front war, facing direct threats from Iran alongside continued attacks from Hezbollah, Iran's most powerful proxy. This is not a distant or abstract conflict. It's one that reaches into homes, schools, and communities across the country, where millions of civilians are living under a constant reality of incoming rockets, missiles, and drones. In Israel today, a siren is not just a warning, it's a countdown. Families have seconds to find shelter, parents grab children, the elderly move as quickly as they can. There is a rush to the shelter. Life is measured in moments of urgency and uncertainty. And yet their resilience shines through. And in those same moments when the sirens sound and civilians are rushing to safety, there are others already moving in the opposite direction. That is Magen David Adom. MADA stands at the center of Israel's civilian emergency response, working in seamless coordination with the IDF and Homefront Command. Together, they form a highly integrated system designed to protect life under the most extreme conditions. What makes MADA's response so extraordinary is not only its courage, but its preparedness. Even before a missile or drone strikes, MADA's advanced systems can anticipate where it is likely to hit and where the shrapnel field will be spread. That means that before impact, before the dust settles, MADA teams are already being mobilized. EMTs and paramedics are dispatched during the siren itself, positioning themselves to reach the scene within minutes of impact. This is life-saving preparedness in real time. When they arrive, they face scenes that are chaotic and dangerous. Blast injuries, shrapnel wounds, fires, collapsed buildings, and civilians in shock. And yet, with professionalism and calm, they are tasked with leading the medical response at the scene and do what they are trained to do: treat, stabilize, and evacuate. They do this day and night, under fire, without hesitation. But beyond the systems and the strategy is the people of MADA who define its impact. It's the paramedic who leaves his home in a shelter, who leaves a family in a shelter to answer a call. It's the EMT who runs toward a strike zone, not knowing what awaits her. It's the volunteer who shows up again and again, driven by a simple but profound mission: to save lives. Today, we are privileged to hear from three individuals who bring this reality into focus from different but deeply connected perspectives. Jonathan Conricus, who so many of us know from the first 3 months of the Gaza war, and more recently as a fellow of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, will provide a strategic and operational overview of the war with Iran and Hezbollah, helping us understand the broader context, the threats to Israel, and what this conflict means for the region. Ori Shacham, Deputy Director General and Chief of Staff of MADA, will take us inside the organization's response, how MADA mobilizes its teams, coordinates with national defense systems, and delivers life-saving care under relentless pressure. And Naram Zaid, a paramedic living and working in Arad, will share her personal experience from the field, what it means to serve on the front lines, not only as a responder, but as someone living this reality every day. This webinar is an opportunity not only to learn, but to bear witness to the resilience of a nation and to the extraordinary courage of those who are saving lives in real time. At American Friends of Magen David Adom, we are proud to stand with MADA and the people of Israel, and we are deeply grateful for each of you for your support and for your commitment. Thank you. It's now my honor to introduce Jonathan Conricus.
Thank you very much, Catherine, and shalom from Israel. I just came out of the shelter moments before this webinar started. Happy that I'm safe. I know I've been scrolling my phone and getting updates, and there are multiple explosion sites in central Israel, in Bnei Brak, Ramat Gan, Petah Tikva, and probably other locations. I don't know yet if there are wounded people, but I'm sure Uri will have updates on that. But we continue to find ourselves at war. Israeli civilians really at the forefront of what's happening. facing new and different types of Iranian munitions. First, it was the ballistic missiles, each of them carrying a minimum of half a ton of explosives, massive craters and massive impact with tremendous yield and explosive power. That's, by the way, a similar missile that landed and exploded in Arad a day and a half ago and caused a mass casualty event. And I'm sure we will speak about that. We have that type of munition. And then we have the new and more difficult to intercept and negate cluster munitions, which is something that I don't think any civilian population in the world has been facing as Israel, and no ambulatory service has been forced to deal with it. What basically is happening is that the Iranians are firing ballistic missiles, and even if they are intercepted successfully by Arrow or other defense systems, they shatter in the air. And what you have is a very large radius of dozens of miles where bombs the size between 50 and 100 pounds with explosives simply descend upon the earth, and it's impossible to intercept those fragments. And that is what we're seeing now. That's what impacted in central Israel. That is what has caused a lot of casualties. So we're seeing that, and all services, IDF, Home Front Command, MADA, police, everybody need to adjust to this. And of course, Israeli civilians need to make sure that they are in shelter. And in the north, we have the ordinary rockets that are being fired by Hezbollah, most of them towards communities in northern Israel. Today, unfortunately, an Israeli civilian woman was killed as she was seeking shelter. She was out driving in northern Israel, a place called Machanaim Junction by Rosh Pina, and she heard sirens. She actually sought shelter and she did what she was supposed to do, but she was extremely unlucky and was hit by shrapnel from an incoming rocket and was declared dead at the scene by MADA first responders. So many events happening. We continue to strike Iranian targets. And if I'll zoom out for a second and speak a little bit about the bigger picture, then I want to give you my assessment of where we stand. So there's a lot of things happening, lots of spin, lots of people sending feelers, testing the waters and testing how the other side will respond to it. And I'll try to make sense in the very short time that I have of where we stand now and where I think we are likely going to move. One bottom line is, I believe President Trump is building a very solid case for future escalation against the Iranian regime. What do I mean? President Trump is pursuing diplomacy. He is pursuing a diplomatic end, and he is dealing in good faith with the Iranians, offering them an off-ramp, maybe the last one, I don't know, whereby he's telling them, you're not going to have nuclear weapons, you're not going to have ballistic missiles, and you're not going to continue to bully the region and hit Israel and our regional allies. If you agree to that, then we can stop the war. And judging by what the Iranian regime is doing, they're hardballing, and they are still, doesn't look as if they understand the situation that they're in, and it looks as if they think that they're in a position to dictate terms to the US and to Israel and not the other way around. But there's at least 3.5 days left of the presidential ultimatum, after which the US, in my assessment, will escalate the situation because the Iranians are going to hardball and say no and make ridiculous claims that they're not in position to do. And what will happen afterwards is that the US will move things forward. And to be clear, up until now, the US and Israel have been very, very successful in striking the targets that we wanted to strike. And the emphasis here is that there are a lot of targets, a multitude of targets that the US and Israel have specifically not struck because they are national infrastructure, electric, water, oil and gas, transportation, any of the other vast amounts of infrastructure that are important for a country and important for the well-being of the people who live there that currently are off limits. I don't think that they will remain off limits, and I think that if the Iranian regime continues to be as arrogant as they are, they will find themselves with a loss of Kharj Island. I think the US will take control of it, including the assets that are already there, and they will start using that for American purposes. And I would envision Israeli and American strikes on very sensitive and key infrastructure in Iran that is the most important to the regime. Now, there's a very delicate balance to try to maintain here, because both the US and Israel definitely want to minimize the suffering and hardship on the Iranian people. We know that the Iranian people is the future here. We know that they are the future of that country, and we're hoping for them to be able to emerge strong, unified, and then take over and overthrow the regime. I believe that is the real plan that Israel and the US has, and therefore creating hardship for them is something that could be counterproductive and backfire, and therefore there's a thin kind of balancing act to be done here. But I think that the next escalation will be in that direction, unless the Iranian regime decides to cut their losses and understand that they're not going to move forward. Now, about the Strait of Hormuz. That is the doomsday weapon that the Iranian regime has been preparing for many years. They've invested significant resources in building the military infrastructure that they need in order to be able to threaten maritime civilian traffic in the area. They've built tunnels and launch positions in the hard bedrock of the Iranian coast. They have different positions from where they will send unmanned naval vehicles, explosive vehicles, and various other infrastructure. And that's also known for CENTCOM and for specifically Israel and the US defense establishment. It doesn't come as a surprise. And I'll quote an expert that we have at FDD, or Admiral Mark Montgomery, a former commander of a naval battle group. He assesses that it'll take a few weeks, between 2 and 4 weeks, for the US, if that is defined as an objective, to actually open up the Strait of Hormuz for safe civilian traffic. It'll take some time, it'll take some doing, it'll take a clear effort, but it is definitely something that is doable. And bottom line, the Iranian regime may have the ability to temporarily close the Strait of Hormuz. I do not believe that they have the ability to keep it close and to be able to sustain the degradation of efforts that the US will be affecting on them. But that remains to be seen, and we're still not there yet. Just reading now before coming on that the UK and the French have apparently decided that they're going to get off the fence and actually participate in the war here, and that they will be leading, the UK will be leading a Hormuz Strait maritime force, helping the US to actually open it up in terms of convoy and French minesweepers, special vessels that are needed in order to clear mines. If that's true, if that's confirmed, I don't know yet that it is, but if it is, that's a good and positive development. Now, another point which is important regionally, and then I'll zoom back into Israel regarding Hezbollah. Regionally speaking, Arab countries in the Gulf, led by the Saudis, UAE, to a certain extent Qatar, but Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, and many other countries, they're still sitting on the fence as well. But we're hearing reports that the Saudis and the Emiratis are telling President Trump, we need assurances from you that you are going all in. And if you do, if you're going to stick to actually obliterating the military capabilities of this Iranian regime, we are going to participate. That's where we are now. They've been sitting on the fence and not doing very much useful things in terms of military. But if they get these assurances from President Trump, and I believe that within 3.5 days they will, then we might see Arab countries participate alongside the US and to a certain extent Israel in fighting the regional bully, the Iranian regime. And if that happens, that is very important, and that's a watershed moment moving forward. Now, taking it back to Israel, home front, northern Israel, Hezbollah made the strategic mistake that we were really hoping that they would do, and that is that they dragged Lebanon in and they joined the war at the behest of Iran. By the way, contrary to the very explicit demands and statements of the democratically elected government in Lebanon. The prime minister, the president, and everybody else in that country said Hezbollah, we do not want you to drag Lebanon into this war. It isn't our war. We have a totally different trajectory, and you do not have our blessing to do so. And on the contrary, we will hold you responsible for any destruction, and we do not want to serve as a tool on the Iranian chessboard. Nevertheless, Hezbollah ignored this, and they have now dragged Lebanon into a war, which I believe Hezbollah is going to lose, and it has the potential, and of course we still have to fight that out, but it has the potential of really achieving long-term strategic change. In what sense? We have a unique situation where the interests of the state of Israel overlap and join with the interests of the state of Lebanon. And they're getting support from the US and from France, internationally speaking, and tacit support by the Saudis and Emiratis. And these are all very important players. And even Syria is at least not opposing it. And that's a rare aligning of stars that we've never seen before. But most importantly, Hezbollah made the aggression against Israel, and Israel is now going to take the opportunity and degrade the military capabilities of Hezbollah to such an extent that the Lebanese government can do what UN Security Council Resolution 1559 said years ago, decades ago, that they need to do, and the Taif Accords, which is that there should be one military in Lebanon, and it should only be the Lebanese armed forces, no foreign militias, no Hezbollah. The Lebanese government will have that opportunity, and we will hope that they'll have the leadership and the courage and the stamina to actually do so. If they do so, fast forward a few months from now, we could be in a totally different situation in Israel, and MDA first responders in the finger of the Galilee and in Kiryat Shmona could maybe focus only on routine issues and delivering babies and perhaps dealing with car accidents, and they won't have to think about rockets flying in from Lebanon because the situation can be different. I actually think that there's the option of this happening. I'm hopeful that it will happen, but there's still fighting that needs to happen. And I have family up in northern Israel. I just spoke with them. They're in a war zone. Continuous firing of rockets towards northern Israel. Israel is retaliating. We have Israeli soldiers, ground troops on the ground inside Lebanon, clearing the area that is adjacent to the border, making sure that there's a bigger buffer zone on the Lebanese side, making sure that there's no or minimized threat of infiltration into Israel, keeping Israelis safer in their homes. And I think that this will continue to escalate until Hezbollah is brought on his knees and the Lebanese government will be able to actually take control over their country. That's the end game. A lot of things will happen on the way, but I think that is the objective, and that's where we're going. Last words here about where we stand before I hand it over to my colleagues at MDA, whom I'm sure you really want to hear from. Difficult times in Israel. Kids aren't going to school. The weaker parts of society, elderly people, children, people with disabilities are really going through extremely tough times. There's economic hardship because most of the commerce and workplaces are closed. There's still, of course, food on supermarket shelves, and we have gas at the pump, nowhere near any emergency situation, but we are at war, and Israeli civilians are suffering from it. I'll just tell you that, I've been on Israeli news a lot, and I've even had the pleasure of going to the Marcus Blood Center and visiting the command center there, one of 7, I believe, MDA call centers that exist. And I just want to say that it's good to see that in times of emergency, there are organizations that work and deliver. MDA is one such organization. The IDF is one such organization where Israeli civilians, when they need a service from a life-saving service, they dial and they get someone to answer. Usually when I was there, it was 1.9 seconds response time for MDA call centers, MDA experts to pick up the phone and deal with the situation. That's phenomenal. That's world-class response times, and that is why Israelis are fortunate to have this service, and when it's needed, and unfortunately last 3 weeks it's been desperately needed, and I know that MDA is under a tremendous strain. So for all of you watching, my message to you is, please hold your heads high and we will tough through this. Israel is strong. Israelis are strong. We have strong institutions. We have a strong military. We have a strong people. We have strong organizations like MADA. And yes, times are tough, but I think that I'm, if you've heard me and seen me on TV, I'm usually not the optimist, and I don't think you could categorize me as being, naive or blue-eyed. I think that there's a real chance to make meaningful, positive change in the Middle East. And I'm positive about the options here. And I hope that we will have the luck, good fortune, leadership, and combat skill to see this through. If we do, many good things can happen. And I look forward to that. So thank you very much for having me on. Thank you, Catherine. And I look forward to hearing from Uri and Naram. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. And thank you for leaving us on such a positive note, actually. We're all going to hope that you are spot on with your plans and hopes for the next few months. Now we're going to switch to Uri Shacham. Uri, we'd love to hear from you about what's happening with MADA now.
Now that I'm not muted, everybody can hear me. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me, and thank you, Jonathan, for this extraordinary speak. I would start with what Jonathan ended with. At the end of the day, as an Israeli, not as a Magen David Adom people, my family's life for the last 3 weeks have been nonstop sirens, running to shelter, having families living outside of their homes with relatives because many people in Israel don't have shelters. Kids are not going to school. Nevertheless, I think that Israelis know, as Jonathan said, that if God forbid something will happen, Magen David Adom will be there for them. And if you'll ask me, what's the role of Magen David Adom, is exactly those days, to be there at the dire moments of the people of Israel, strengthen their resilience, having them know that as hard as it is, as dark as it is, not knowing what's happening, Magen David Adom will be there. So for the last 3 weeks, beginning of February 28th, Magen David Adom is on full alert. That means that the entire fleet of ambulances, almost 2,000 ambulances and mobile intensive care units, are 24/7 manned by paramedics, by EMTs, by 39,000 of men and women of Magen David Adom. Basically, this is the buffer that the state of Israel has to respond for any missile attack, whether it's coming from Iran, whether it's coming from Lebanon, whether it's routine because people still are suffering from medical emergencies, even though there is war. And although it has been long, we are able to provide when people need our help. And the ongoing coordination that we have with the police, with the fire brigade, with the IDF, the Home Front Command, but also with the units that protect the border from in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan, is something that allows us to provide the services when needed. Now, thinking of what are the challenges that Magen David Adom faces nowadays, basically it's like a three-front war challenge. The first one, and maybe the most the central one, is Iran, and this is for sure understandable. Please understand that, as Jonathan mentioned, we are dealing with multiple missiles fired from Iran. Some of them are ballistic missiles, and when you have a 1,000 or 1,200 pounds missile landing at the middle of Tel Aviv, it can cause massive destruction. This ballistic missile can take down a whole block. In a few minutes, you'll hear from Naram how is it to arrive to a middle of a very dense neighborhood where a missile has hit the ground, but caused like 40 or 50 buildings to be partially destroyed. It takes time to actively go inside those partially destroyed buildings and actively search for victims. Our people actually have to go floor by floor, door to door, knocking on doors and making sure that everyone are okay. It takes time. And during this time, they are under a threat of another missile being shot. An hour before Naram was called to the incident in Arad, there was an incident in a nearby city, Dimona. During the response uh, to this incident, there was a second sirens alerted. Now, only because we are in the family and nobody hears us, I would tell you that according to what we hear from the IDF, the Iranian has intentionally shot a second missile in order to hit the first responders on the scene. They are targeting humanitarians. So this is a big challenge. Another challenge is to try to assess the victims, because people that are injured due to blast injuries may suffer internal organs damages, which is hard to assess on the scene. Now, it's one thing when you have 2 or 3 or 4 victims. What are you doing when you have 80 or 100, like Naram had on her hands? And when we are talking about cluster munition, it's a whole different story. Yeah, the explosive are not I would say are not as in a ballistic missiles, but then you get 8 or 10 different scenes in one city. Just 5 minutes before we started this webinar, a cluster bomb missile was shot towards the city of Ramat Gan and Petah Tikva and Bnei Brak. And we had 8 and even more than this, different scenes. Now, this is our role to understand where is the most complex or the most challenging scene, and send the ambulances over there. Some of those cluster munitions don't explode on impact, meaning that our people have to work on the scene while they have unexploded devices. This is actually what the American army had to deal with when they fought in Iran and when they fought in Iraq. Now, we are talking about EMTs and paramedics that treat patients and still have to make sure that they are not damaged by munitions. And we have the Hezbollah. When we have Hezbollah targeting from the Lebanese border. Now, people say that Israelis in Tel Aviv, in Rishon LeZion, in the central city, live very hard life. In the northern border, they live impossible lives. People in the city of Kiryat Shmona, which is the most northern city in Israel, actually live in the shelter. They have zero time of to run to the shelter. First, they hear the explosion, then the sirens go off because it's a very short distance. And within this chaos, as Kathy mentioned, as you'll hear from Naram, those are the men and women of Magen David Adom just rushing to the fire, and this is our role to make sure that they are safe. Now, I would like to take you through what's happening in our dispatch when an alert is received. Our command and control systems are connected to the early warning system of the home front command. So once a ballistic missile is shot from Iran, we get an alert. It takes usually it's about 7 minutes or 8 minutes. And we follow with the home front command maps the suspected or the projected possible impact point of this missile. And at first you get a very large circle on the map, and as the missile goes closer and closer to Israel, this circle has become more narrow or smaller, to a point where we say, listen, I think that it will hit a specific street in Israel or a specific location. And immediately after the time of the impact, we just send our teams to survey the scenes. We have learned that the people that have been killed, most of them, 90% of the people that were killed, and 100% of those that were critically injured were outside of the shelters. Now, I'm not playing a blame game, but I'm saying if somebody is staying in the shelter and he or she will go out 10 minutes after this, this is a death sentence for somebody who was outside of the shelter and was hit. And this is why we, Magen David Adom people, are running to those scenes of impact to take care of people that were injured and nobody knows of them. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of courage, but it is life saving. Another thing that we get is we are connected to a system that knows to identify a vehicle that that had like a big shockwave passing by it. We are connected with a firm in Israel. So what we learned in Arad, you'll hear about it from Naram in a couple of minutes, is that once a missile hit and we get this indication that vehicles in the area has sustained a huge blast wave, we understand that probably a missile is hit and we send our teams over there. And this activity is always coordinated with the police, with the fire department, and with the Home Front Command. It's not a one organization show, but we learned very quickly that because we have so many people on the ground, like Naram, like all the volunteers that we have, we get information very quick. And when we, Magen David Adom, are going out to the public and saying, listen, from the last missile firing toward the city of Haifa, we have no calls, we have no injured persons. This is relaxing people. This is serving as like a mental therapy for the nation. On the other hand, when we tell them, listen, Magen David Adom is in Arad, and we are taking care of the different scene, and we are taking people to the hospitals, people understand that there is an incident. Nevertheless, they trust Magen David Adom to deal with this. And this is our life for the last 3 weeks. And we are all watching the media, and we hear that there is a negotiation between the U.S. and Iran. But for Magen David Adom, we keep our high alert regardless of any negotiation that is going on. Because, during negotiation, either side can try to have achievements, the last minute achievements. And at the end of the day, if Iran will try to get achievements by shooting more ballistic missile, it is up to Magen David Adom to make sure that no achievement is received, that everybody are being taken care of. We are coming through towards Pesach. And Pesach is a great opportunity for our enemies to try and attack us and hurt our morale. And it is up to Magen David Adom to make sure that even if they try, they are blocked. And you know what? I'm going back to my feeling as an Israeli. And after going through several wars and military operations, at one point you say, okay, this is enough. Let me go back to my normal life as much as they can be normal in the Middle East. But this time, this is different. This time, the common Israeli would tell you, listen, I am willing to keep suffering. I am willing to have this situation going on as long as I know that my kids will live safely for decades after this. As long as I know that I'm not threatened by Hezbollah terrorists invading the northern part. And for me, I see Magen David Adom role in enforcing this feeling, in knowing that, okay, we can go on and on and on because there is Magen David Adom that keeps our life. And the one that allows us to do this are the men and women of Magen David Adom, the young paramedics like Naram that go there regardless of what's happening, that putting their lives in harm's way in order to help others. And I feel confident that we are strong and we will keep providing what the people of Israel expects from us. So thank you very much. Kathy, back to you.
Thank you, Ori. Incredible presentation, and we so appreciate you sharing not only your model life, but also your personal views. We now would love to turn it over to Naram, who lives and works in Arad. And Naram, we'd love to hear about your experience and anything you can share with us about some of the patients that you've had.
Hey, so good afternoon, everyone. So before I will speak about Saturday, I would like to go back a few weeks. So the war has been going on for around 3 weeks, I think maybe more. And I was born in Arad, I live in Arad, I work in Arad. And until October 7th, I heard, I think, about one siren in my life. So it's a very quiet city in the south of Israel, a very small city. I think it's around 30,000 civilians that live there. So we don't know what it feels like to be at war on a daily basis. So after October 7th, we started having a lot of sirens, especially when we have rockets, from Iran. And when the war started 3 weeks ago, we started working like a lot of shifts. So I've been working for 24 hours and then 24 hours at home, 24 hours at work, and continuing. And on one of the shifts I had to perform CPR on an old woman. And while we were performing CPR, the red siren started going off. And we needed to take her to the shelter while doing CPR on her and get her son and her husband inside the shelter while continuing to do CPR, because we had to keep her safe, her family safe, and we had to keep ourselves safe. So the war hits us not only when a missile strikes. We feel that and we live that on really like on a daily basis. So I think that we didn't have any day since the war started that we didn't have sirens. And I think that's crazy for, like, if you ask the people in my city, they will all tell you that it's insane because we never expected that we will be a target. And so moving to Saturday, so I was just returning home from the north of Israel because we had a holiday after Ramadan. And when I reached Arad, it was, I think, half an hour after the missile hit in Dimona. So I saw the staff, the ambulances, leave from Arad to Dimona and return from Dimona to Arad. And I wasn't at shift. I wasn't at work. I was at home. So I got the alert that a red alarm is about to go. I got into the shelter, and I think less than a minute after the red alarm started going off, we heard an huge exploding sound, and I knew immediately that something not good, something bad happened. Because we hear exploding sounds, but not this intense, not this huge exploding sound. So I waited until the red alarm will stop. I got into my car. I got a call from my dispatch. They told me, at first we thought that there were a few scenes in Arad, but they told me to go to the main scene. And first, like while I was driving, I didn't see anything unusual. So I thought that maybe part of the missile hit one building and everything will be okay. But as I continued to drive there, I started smelling this smell of fire and I don't know what the smell was, but it was a horrible smell. And I knew that something bad is probably happening. And when I parked my car, I saw two ambulances. And when I reached the first ambulance, I started noticing, I started understanding what's going on, but not fully understanding. When I entered the first ambulance, I saw 5 kids, 2 adults in the ambulance, treated by medics that were in the ambulance. And they were all bleeding from everywhere. And there was one child in that ambulance with a severe head injury. So I understood that we need to take him to the hospital quickly, but I didn't know what's happening inside. So I didn't know how I can tell the driver, okay, you need to drive to the hospital because maybe there's a patient with more severely wounds. So I continued to the second ambulance, and I saw pretty much around this, the same scene in that ambulance. Also, I saw a child with a chest injury. So I needed to think which of them will go first, which of them will get evacuated first, because we had 2 ambulances at that point. And after I saw those patients, I turned around and I took a look at the buildings that were impacted. And like at first I was shocked because like when you see it on the news, you get upset, you get sad, but when you see it in front of your face in your city, it was devastating. So I needed like a second to understand what's going on. Of course, I had to continue really quickly working and triaging the patients. So we started triaging the patients. We had a lot of civilians helping us take out the patients from their houses. I think total, like the main scene in Arad were 7 buildings that were impacted from the explosion. We took care of 117 patients on this scene, which is insane because we started with 2 ambulances. Of course, we gathered forces, a lot of medics, a lot of paramedics, a lot of volunteers started coming and helping. And we started triaging the patients. While we were triaging the patients, we had more and more ambulances coming so we could evacuate patients to the hospitals. And we decided that we're gonna evacuate them with 1 severe patient in an ambulance, with more easily patients in the ambulance, so that the severely patient could get evacuated faster to the hospitals, and of course could get a good treatment while driving to the hospital, because Arad is 30 minutes from the hospital, from the main hospital of the south. So of course we have to also treat them while we are driving to the hospital. And I think this whole progress took us about an hour to get everyone evacuated, to lower the amount of patients on the scene. But we finished in Arad only at 5 a.m. because we needed to go and check in every building, in every apartment, that everyone is safe, that we don't have any more patients, that we didn't miss anyone. And of course, we work with the police, with Pikud Oref, who are responsible for checking and evacuating the buildings. So it was a hard scene. It was a pretty intense scene with a lot of patients. But I think that when we finished and we understood that everyone is alive, and yeah, we have some serious conditioned patients, but everyone is alive. I think we all could take a minute, take a breath, and I think also be proud of ourselves for doing that. And I'm gonna tell you like a little story about a patient that I saw, and I think with that I will return the Zoom to Catherine. So while patient in complete chaos, I saw one policeman with a little girl in his hands, and he was begging me to take the girl from his hands so he could go rescue her family. And the girl didn't agree to let him go. And I needed to tell her, like in those words, to a 9-year-old, that if she won't let go of the man, then maybe her parents will be injured severely because the building is about to collapse. And he needs to go get them from the building. So I told her that. Of course, first she was shocked, and then of course she let go of him very quickly. But she didn't agree to get in any ambulance until she knew her father, her mother, and her little brother are all outside, so they can all get evacuated to the hospital together. And I think that was the main issue that we had that day, because those buildings are mostly families, large families, and they didn't agree to get evacuated until they knew that the whole family is okay. And of course, it's understandable, but it was hard trying to find the rest of their family so we could get them evacuated quickly. So we had a lot of families who didn't know what's going on with their relatives, and they didn't agree to get evacuated until they could find their relative. So that was another thing that we did while, of course, while treating the patient. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening. Catherine, you're muted.
It happens every time. But Naram, thank you so much for sharing with us your experience in your own hometown. That had to have been incredibly difficult. I did want to let people know that Jonathan left because he had another webinar that he needed to go to. But I want to thank everyone for being with us today. I think we close this conversation with a really deep awareness of the immense challenges that Israel continues to face from Iran and from Hezbollah, and of the extraordinary burden placed on Magen David Adom and their staff and volunteers. Every day, MATA teams are operating under the most dangerous conditions, responding to emergency with courage, speed, and unwavering commitment to save lives. At a time like this, it's important to remember that MATA relies on philanthropic support for much of their budget. The ambulances, the equipment, the training, the rapid response capabilities we just discussed are all made possible because of people like you. Your support isn't just meaningful, it is essential. I want to extend our sincere thanks to our speakers, to Jonathan Conricus, to Shacham, and to Naram Zaid for their insight, their dedication, and for sharing their really powerful stories. And to all of you who joined us today, thank you for your time, your attention, and for standing with Israel and with Magen David Adom. If you'd like to learn more about MATA or make a donation, please visit us at afmda.org. Thank you so much. Am Israel Chai.